What is going on, guys? My name is DJ Miles and Infinity Joe is back with me. We are going to be reviewing the latest Netflix anime, Cannon Busters. Stay tuned.
Nice.
What are your initial thoughts on Cannon Busters?
Initial thoughts, I was pretty psyched to see this because this was a Kickstarter from a few years back, headed up by LaShawn Thomas, who, if anyone doesn't know that name, he worked on The Boondocks, he worked on Legend of Korra, and also Black Dynamite, the animated series. So this is like a huge passion project for him, particularly because I found out at a later point this was initially a comic he did some years back.
So let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the premise here with Cannon Busters. So it is pretty much a Western steampunk type of anime where you have, these two robots trying to find an outlaw, a wanted man, and they now go on these ragtag adventures.
From watching it, like, the first episode definitely got, like, a lot of Trigun feelings from it. Like,
Yes.
if anyone remembers that one, because that was sci-fi Western.
So let's go ahead and talk about the opening and closing credits, because for whatever reason, a lot of people just always want to know what anime reviewers or have to say on opening and credit scenes of any anime. I like it. I like the opening credits, but I like the closing credits even more.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That opening jingle, I'm like, wow, like this is good. I never found myself trying to skip ahead. Well, I did for a few episodes because of the review, but if I didn't have to review this, I would catch myself watching that intro and closing every time.
Oh, yeah. Like, particularly because it does have not only, like, the good, like, musical hook to it, but also, like, the visuals that go along with the opening are really kind of kicking for it.
Let's go ahead and now talk about the characters. We have our main star, Philly the Kid. I want to get into just minor spoilers with them, and they show this off to us in the first 10 minutes of the first episode, so if you guys want to not hear it, then just tune out for 5 seconds, but I feel like I can't do a proper review if we don't mention it. Philly the Kid is immortal.
He's like Wolverine, just no matter how many times you knock him down, cut him up, or blow off his head, it keeps on coming back.
And then we are introduced with the robots here, Sam and Casey, who is an outdated maintenance droid.
Yeah.
She's a lot of fun. She's very adorable. I caught myself actually jumping between the English and Japanese stuff because I just love how both of them were both trying to do that adorable robot voice.
Yeah. Like, she very much had kind of like the R2-D2 aesthetic to her of like just being a tag-along, very cute and very like unassuming.
She was blissfully ignorant a lot of the times, but that's what made her so appealing for me.
Yeah, well, I feel like she was not nearly as blissfully ignorant as, of course, her counterpart Sam, who, I feel like if you looked up the word precious in the dictionary, there's just going to be a photo of her because that's what she is. She is just adorable and precious the entire way through.
And then we can't forget to mention Bessie, who is Philly's car.
Yep.
Which they do a lot of cool stuff with it, and that's where we get the 3D animation styles incorporated with that. So that's a lot of fun. I get some Cowboy Bebop vibes from this, and the pilot episode, like you mentioned earlier, actually does a really good job of just kind of setting the scene. And it does so much to reel me in, and we get fun characters along the way we get Nine, who's like this drunken ninja, Kelby, who's the prince to this fallen kingdom,
Odin, his badass like guardian.
bodyguard. So we get these supporting characters along this journey. Now let's just kind of talk about the story itself. So every episode is pretty much a side adventure, ultimately leading up to the end point. And I ended up just enjoying what I got with these particular solo stories, right? Where you see Philly maybe getting hung from a group of people who are trying to skin him to him being digested into a flower. Those are fun. There's points in the story where the narrative itself, I feel like I got lost in because I'm like, wow, these great solo stories are great. But what's the overall narrative again?
Yeah, I feel like that might be the biggest thing is that we're still missing pieces because it doesn't really conclude a lot, and there's still like a lot of dangling plot threads. So the story's not wrapped up at the end, but if they are going to be doing more, which I hope they plan to do more, these are going to be things they will likely explore later, because like we didn't get to know like various other things, like who was this Lady Day that wanted to ostensibly capture and or kill the immortal outlaw Philly, or even like also this big like fantasy king of Locke trying to pretty much take over land and so forth.
Yeah, and then they even actually tease Locke with like, oh, this man has demonic powers, but it seems like he's answering to a higher up himself.
Yeah, like, because that was the thing that I really found like really like interesting was how for the most part, we were always seeing him as he was this towering, like, overpowered, mystical individual. But then we find out that, like, how he's like, I summon magic. And magic is like, no, we summon you. Oh, shit. This guy really doesn't know what he's doing right now.
And then I do like some of the other villains we get. I don't know how you have a character named JoJo who does not fall in line with any of the Joestar bloodline. Shame on you, Cannon Busters. Man, they reeled me in with that. Yeah. But they do a lot of fun things with this JoJo character.
Like, I was like a little let down because I thought he was going to be a lot more like recurring within the story. And really, they kind of deal with him in one episode. But granted, it's still a fun episode nonetheless.
It is, and there's actually more highlights with some of the solo stories that I got that I wish we actually knew more about, right? 9 specifically, when they kind of go into his backstory about like what happened with him and why people are chasing him, I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of found that more intriguing than like the actual plot.
They hinted at just enough about 9 to make you really want to know more about him. I mean, the one thing I am very curious about is how he claims he's 30 years old and looks like he's 80.
He's like 80. Yeah. Let's go ahead and now just talk about the style and background of the show. So I don't think it's doing anything groundbreaking, but as I mentioned earlier, I do like how vast and very steampunk a lot of things are, right? Like it's very Western, but you see how things just kind of flow with this story, right?
Yeah, like there's also like just that element of like kind of a cyberpunk to it, because like we'll see people with like augmented body parts, we see like robots, we also had like kind of a almost like an homage. Well, granted, I feel like this show really has its influences on its sleeves, because we have that one episode that was ostensibly like lifting from Battle Angel Alita, with the like city that was high above in the clouds but just dropped everything of its waste down below it with Zenith. That's what the name of the place. Or even like, and this was a thing that I particularly liked, the 3 like drunk old dudes that were following Philly around when he was trying to fight 9.
Yeah.
Because they were just like those 3 guys in Cowboy Bebop that were always just appearing in random locations.
So let's go ahead and now just bring up 2 more points, and then we can just kind of talk spoilers, right? I'm going to say this as an anime enthusiast and as a hardcore anime fan. If you're not into the anime just genre, I can't really recommend this outside of people who aren't into anime.
Yeah, like very much, like I said, this is a show if you like Trigun or Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star even, very much within the genre of fantasy, space, westerns, and that typically only seems to be around in anime outside of maybe stuff like Star Wars or so forth. Like, it's not really an entry-level point. However, you never know. Maybe someone, this could be their first anime, and it blows their mind, and like, this was awesome. I want to see more of this.
Well, to that point, I'm glad Netflix actually picked it up as their original type of thing to have. So,
although, one thing we didn't mention at all, though, a big thing about this anime, too, there are plenty people of color as the main cast and all that. So that could be something that does draw a lot of people in, because for the most part, like, a lot of people do have an issue with anime being stigmatized as either everyone's only just Asian characters or quote-unquote they are white. You know, this has like a lot of people. It's a very diverse cast. That could be a thing that does draw some people that might not want to check out anime. This might be a thing for them to check out instead.
Now let's go ahead and talk about spoilers, because we are at the end of the review, and then, you know, we'll just say our last thoughts with it. So spoilers, there's one thing that bothered me. I don't like how Kelby was this prince. Okay, he doesn't know much about life, and we see Odin try to tell him, like, listen, it isn't until you go through these like hardships in life that's actually gonna, like, you know, define you as a man and who you are as a character. We see Sam, her whole journey is like just trying to get reunited with Kelby, his, you know, her best friend. And then there's a moment towards the end where Kelby just like, you're a robot, you don't have emotions. What do you know the things that I'm suffering and going through right now? And I'm like, wow, talk about a character regression where I thought they were building him up to be this guy of character to be the next, heir to this kingdom. And then he's acting like a brat towards his best friend. And I'm like, wow.
I feel like if you look at the title of the episode, it is like Innocence Lost. I feel like this was maybe a point of him because, the whole thing again, like in the very beginning, he's a spoiled brat. Like he's like, oh, I don't want to go to this party. This party's a thing for my dad. It's not even my real birthday. He just claims it is. Always fussing and like fighting. And then like Odin has to show him like through these trials and whatnot. So I feel like that was at least a moment of him still like trying to wrap his head around everything, particularly because like, he's an idealist and he wants the best in people and thought like, oh, well, things aren't going to go that bad. And then like he sees the character of Hilda get like killed right before him and it affected him in such a way that it's, it's that whole he's saying things he doesn't mean because he doesn't know how else to process what's going on at the moment. At least that's how I viewed it, in particularly because I felt like that was a good moment for Sam herself because like her journey with Philly has been teaching her to be more human-like since like she even had that moment of like her being like, why are you being so shitty to me? And she's like, look, I've learned to insult. I mean, how can you say I'm just a robot if I'm learning these kind of things?
As I mentioned earlier, the story for me was definitely more about the journey because the destination I didn't really care for. I'm not sure what it says about the story when I thought Nine's backstory was actually more intriguing or just learning about Philly's backstory about like why is he immortal and why did he become immortal? Right. So when they even tease that a bit, I'm like, ooh, I want to know more about that.
Now granted, that gets to like where I had like kind of a feeling of like a bit of a character regression within Philly because we had that moment with him. And when he was dealing with that wizard about how the wizard's like, you're immortal and you do nothing with it. I mean, didn't you want to get revenge? And then his mindset from the rest of the season is, I'm going to go and kill that prince. And it's not until the end that he does come around and realize the whole thing of like, hey, no, this is stupid because killing you, a kid, doesn't doesn't change the fact that my parents died because of your dad's army and all that. So, you're right. And I feel like this might be something that comes into play later in another season. They never really explained why it was that Sam and Casey in the very first episode were looking for Philly. Because they said like, hey, we need to go to Gara and Philly the kid can help us. But they never state why. At least my thinking, this is something that's going to be led into later, since there's this whole matter that they state of, like, magic was pretty much abolished, and now it seems like magic is coming back into play in the universe. I feel like someone is trying to set, like, pieces together, because we got Philly, who's immortal, we have Sam, who is a golem that supposedly has like a soul of some sort because she's like magic and science combined. And then of course we have like Locke, who is like following the orders of this shadowy like eyeball magic essence. So I have a feeling that might come into play later, but as it stands now, it seems like a weird plot thread that they just left open.
Did you feel satisfied with it overall? Like, because this is very a to be continued type of thing, and I'm like, well, there's 12 episodes, here was the sales pitch. I think the pilot did a great episode of reeling me in. Some of my favorite episodes were, again, just kind of the solo stories, right? Like getting the moles out, right, of their zone, right? Seeing every time they had Philly die, I always, like, that was always a highlight. I'm like, how does he die in this episode?
What is, like, at least curious for me, like, what do the numbers signify? Because, like, we're showing that, oh, he dies, and they just appear on his body, but they start from like the palm of his hand and then like start spreading outwards, but then they're like showing up in random places, like on his thigh, on his back, on his shoulders, but not. So it makes me wonder like if there's gonna be a limit to his immortality, or if there's gonna be something that triggers at a certain point. So we'll have to wait and see. But that was our thoughts on Cannon Busters. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with our views here? Did you not? Let me know. Again, my name is DJ Miles. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm Infinity Joe.
And as I always say, to be continued, take care.